The comfort zone is like that little cage that our mind tries to hold us in. And that's why it's good if you can do things that help to push you outside of your comfort zone. You know, some of those things might be traveling. If you travel alone to a place you've never been before, that can really help push you outside your comfort zone. Going to places that you have never been before, or even doing something as simple as going to a movie by yourself or going out to eat by yourself when you haven't done that before, when you've always needed the company of a person or people in order to do those kinds of things. Being concerned that being by yourself might have others put a spotlight on you as if you're a spectacle or something. You know, as I think about this, I was I was on a beach recently in Europe, and there were all kinds of people there from all over Europe and probably even America. Well, yes, definitely from the United States and from other parts of the world on this one little beach. And beach towels, there were men, there were women. Most of them age ranges from teenagers up to their 40s or 50s, but mostly younger, like in their 20s and 30s. And what was interesting is, of all the people there probably, I don't know, maybe 400 or so on this little beach. There was one girl who was topless. None of the other girls were. But she felt free enough to do that. And what was interesting is, as I looked around and thought about that, it was not as if it was a big deal. And I'm from the United States, and so people don't go topless in the US. So, but it just, she melded right in with everything else going on, even though she was the only topless woman on the beach. And it made me think that, you know, somebody who's self-conscious about something like that might think that, oh, if I take off my top, everybody's going to look at me. She obviously didn't have that concern. And it wasn't a big deal. Nobody really paid a lot of attention to her, made it a big deal that she was, I mean, not that they would express it externally, but my point is that a lot of times we think that others are going to put the spotlight on us whenever we make a mistake or do something weird or something out of the ordinary. But most people are just doing their own thing and paying attention to their own lives. They're pretty self-absorbed most of the time, or paying attention to the things immediately around them. And although they might give you a glance or a second glance, it'll be fleeting, and then they'll just move on. And I think, at least for me, that's something that holds me back sometimes, is just the thought that somebody else might be paying attention to something I do and have a concern about it or a criticism of it. And yet the reality is that most people don't give a shit what you do. They aren't watching you all the time. They aren't paying attention to everything you do. And maybe that's because more in the US, I notice that I find in the United States that I am on guard a lot about various things that I do, because there's always the police keeping an eye on if you're going too fast, or some authority figure saying you shouldn't do this or you should do that or whatever. Case in point, you go to the beach And there's signs that say no campfires, no fireworks, no dogs without a leash, no swimming beyond a certain point, no swimming past 10 o'clock at night, no this, no that, no whatever. And it just gets to the point where you're so used to living within these restrictions, within these rules that somebody made in order to avoid a liability lawsuit or something like that, that then we all feel confined. We all feel like, oh, well, I shouldn't do this or I shouldn't do that. And it expands to other areas of our lives because we're wondering about what's the right thing and the wrong thing and the appropriate thing, the legal thing that we ought to do. What if that wasn't all there? What if you could park wherever the fuck you want when you go to the beach? What if nobody's going to pay attention if you did something that maybe you were told you shouldn't do? What if all of that didn't matter and you could just do anything you wanted to do? I mean, sometimes it's hard to even think beyond what our conditioning allows us to think, to even consider that we could do something that we might have thought was wrong, inappropriate, stupid, crazy, or whatever. But this is where, if you get outside of your bubble, if you go to places that you've never been before, especially if you can leave your country and go to another country where people do things differently, where cultures approach problems in a much different way than you and your culture are used to approaching them, where authority figures don't harass you about shit that they may harass you about in your own country. And then you might realize, wow, life is not really what I think it is, or at least it's only what I think it is under these conditions, and then under these different conditions in a different location or different country or different environment, those restrictions don't matter. They aren't there. I'm freer to do as I please. So consider that and see if that might help you to move outside your comfort zone. Ciao.